Welcome to this week's AMT Fresh Produce Overview, your go-to source for the latest price movements, market trends, and forward-looking insights. If you're producing, buying, or selling fresh produce, you're in the right place. This episode is made possible by Standard Bank, helping you grow every step of the way. So, let's dive in. The biggest loser over the past week was potatoes, with prices down 14%. Rising volumes from multiple regions combined with weak demand are putting significant pressure on these prices. The biggest gainer over the past week was cabbage and avocados, which was driven by lower supply or short-term demand spikes. The one to watch over the coming weeks is grapes. We're at the tail end of the local production season, and with imports set to take over, prices may rise sharply over the coming weeks. But with that, let's jump over to the latest vegetable prices. The national average potato price dropped by 14% to R73.34 per 10 kg, with large potatoes lower at 87, mediums at 70 and smalls now at 49 Rand per 10 kg. Mondials traded lower on 70 Rand and Saffras on 78, while the average class 1 price for all sizes averaged on 80 Rand per 10 kg. The average price is now 35% higher than last year this time, with about 3% higher volumes than a year ago. A lack of demand seems to be the main issue at the moment, which can influence most prices over the next 2 weeks. As expected for potatoes, volumes started to pick up, with the weather giving most farmers a gap. Douglas, Natal, Eastern Free State, Christiana and the Vryburg areas are all in the market at the moment. Higher volumes coupled with lower expected demand can drive these prices further downward over the next 2 weeks or so. The average onion price increased by 8% to R94.31 per 10 kg last week and is now about 10% higher compared to a year ago. The average brown onion price increased to 93 Rand. Red onions increased slightly to 119 Rand, while the average white onion price jumped to 98 Rand per 10 kg. Large onions traded higher on 100 Rand, mediums increased to 98 and smalls also traded higher on 82 Rand per 10 kg. We are still expecting volumes to stay under pressure at least until the end of August, and prices that can therefore remain in this upward trend until then. I still think we will see higher prices than last year, with less onions likely to come to the markets this year. Over the next 2 weeks, however, this price might stabilize due to the limited demand expected, as previously mentioned. Tomato prices decreased last week due to lower demand and volumes that increased by 38% week on week, with the latest national average price now 11% lower on R12.63 per kilogram. This price is now 28% lower compared to a year ago. Large tomatoes traded on R15.03, mediums at R13.41 and smalls at R11.82. Tomato volumes started to pick up on the markets as was expected, which coupled with lower expected demand this week will most likely drive tomato prices further downward over the next week or two at least. There is, however, a bit less supply than expected, which could limit the price drop over this coming week. Carrot prices traded 1% lower on R10.05 per kilogram and is now 57% higher compared to a year ago. Large carrots traded on R11.07, mediums at R8.25 and smalls lower on R8.08. We're still expecting more volumes on the markets this week, which could, coupled with low demand in May, start to drive prices sharply downward from this point in time. We also saw some demand destruction due to the high prices that we saw over the last month. The average pepper price increased by 12% to R18.08 per kilogram. Green peppers traded higher on R13.76, but we saw yellow peppers decreasing to R27.30 and red peppers also dropping to R26.14 per kilogram. The average price is still 53% higher than a year ago, with volumes now about 7% lower year on year. We can possibly see a slight dip in the price this and next week due to lower demand, but expect prices to start improving from the start of June again. Cabbage prices increased by 21% to R3.46 per kilogram. Garlic prices increased by 2% to R72.75 per kilogram, with locally produced garlic now R71.54 and imported garlic on R85.52. We are expecting garlic prices to jump over the next 2 months due to lower local volumes as we move into the winter months. Spinach prices increased by 10% to R7.98 per kilogram and is still 42% higher than a year ago. Sweet potato prices increased by 6% to R6.97. Pumpkin prices decreased by 5% to R3.70. Butternuts dropped by 7% to R4.91. Green beans increased by 2% to R16.70, while cucumber prices dropped by about 12% to R24.45 per kilogram. For a deeper dive into these and other market insights, be sure to download our latest reports available for free at amtrends.co.za. Shifting our focus to the fruit markets, however, the average banana price traded about 9% higher on R11.07 per kilogram or R199 per 18 kilogram box and is now 40% higher than a year ago. I still think we can see a slight dip in the price over the next week or two, but that we can also see higher prices again during June and July when less volumes are usually seen on the markets over that period. Apple prices increased by 1% to R9.82 per kilogram and is now 15% higher than a year ago. I still think the price can stabilize around these levels for now. The latest pear price also traded 1% higher on R8.63 per kilogram and can also remain around these levels for now. Orange prices increased by 16% to R6.06 per kilogram and is now 9% higher compared to a year ago. We are expecting prices to possibly dip further from the middle of May to about June due to more volumes that can be seen on the markets still. The avocado price increased by another 20% and traded on R18.25 per kilogram last week and is now 39% higher than a year ago. Variety-wise, Vietes increased to R24, Haas traded on 15, while Pinkertons also traded on R15 per kilogram. I don't think avo prices will increase sharply over the next week or two as volumes are still higher and demand can stay on a lower level, but a gradual upward trend is expected until the end of this year. The average grape price traded 1% higher on R39.16 per kilogram last week. We're now at the end of the local season with lower volumes that can drive prices significantly higher over the next month or two as we become more reliant on imports. Pineapples decreased by 3% to R12.48, lemons increased by 4% to R6.44, while the blueberry price traded higher on R212 per kilogram last week. Our first tip of the week is to plan around lower demand and higher volumes. With demand cooling off and supply rising, especially for potatoes, carrots and tomatoes, farmers should consider staggering harvests or adjust delivery volumes to avoid flooding the markets and driving prices significantly downward. Our second tip is to capitalize on tight supply or niche and high demand crops. Products like avocados, onions and grapes are seeing continued or potential price growth due to tighter supply at the moment. Consider optimizing harvest and distribution for these lines. This episode was proudly brought to you by Standard Bank. For more detailed insights, forecasts and free downloadable tools, visit amtrends.co.za now. I'm Dr. Johnny van der Merwe. Thanks for tuning in and see you next week.